From the moment I opened the invitation, I knew it wasn't real kindness, it was performance. Gilded envelope, thick cardstock, floral accents embossed along the borders. Sierra had spared no expense pretending I mattered. To Mr. and Mrs. Carter Dean, it read, like we were some polished couple fit for glossy magazines, not the pair she rolled her eyes at every Christmas. Mira held it up to the light, grinning like her sister's approval meant something sacred. See? She included you, she said, handing me the card like it weighed more than it did. I stared at it. Not a single handwritten note. Not a single sign she meant the gesture. Still, I nodded. That's nice of her. It wasn't. I knew Sierra. I knew every passive-aggressive dig she ever tossed across a dinner table. The way she once offered me breath mints in front of the entire family after I spoke. Or the time she leaned across the table and asked, "So Carter, are you still working with your hands?" Like being a project manager at a restoration firm was somehow uncouth. She was all appearances, filter-deep warmth, and couture cruelty. But I didn't make it about me. I never did. For Mira, I played along, held doors, drove hours to family gatherings, laughed at jokes that weren't funny, paid for things that went unthanked. Because Mira was worth it. She always had been. At least, I believed she was. So when the wedding planning started and Sierra accidentally added me to a group email about vendors, I chose grace. I offered help. If you need anything, I said during one of the planning calls, Mason can probably get you a spot at Wildbrook. I'll call him. Mira gave me that grateful smile, the one that made enduring her sister's contempt almost worth it. Sierra hesitated. You mean the Wildbrook estate? I thought that was booked solid. My brother manages the schedule. I'll talk to him, I said. I didn't even wait a day. Called Mason that night, laid it all out. It's for Myra's sister. Not my favorite person, but I want to keep the peace. Mason didn't ask questions. For you? I'll make it happen. He juggled bookings, shifted a corporate event, pulled a few late nights organizing permits. Sierra sent one cold thanks via text, if it was even her. But I didn't press. I didn't need credit. I went a step further. Arranged catering. Covered deposits quietly. The head chef owed me a favor for a renovation job we finished last spring. I didn't tell Sierra. Didn't want to give her another reason to diminish my efforts. I just told Mira, the food's handled. She kissed my cheek and said, "You're the best." For a second, that felt like enough. The weeks passed in a blur of fittings, floral samples, group chats I was barely copied on. No mention of a thank you dinner. No token of appreciation. But that wasn't what bothered me. I didn't do it for gratitude. I did it because I thought it would finally bridge the gap. That maybe, just maybe, Sierra would lay her knives down and see me for more than a name Mira brought home. But the closer we got to the big day, the clearer it became. This wasn't my event. I was an outsider with a checkbook and a tolerated smile. Every update passed through Mira. Every decision circled around me like I was too inelegant to understand the nuance of napkin folds and seating charts. Even when I mentioned that Mason had asked who the bride's contact was, Sierra replied with a dismissive, "Just tell him I'll handle it. You've done your part." I tried not to let it sting. Tried to focus on Myra's happiness. But the morning of the rehearsal dinner, I arrived early to help set up and found my name missing from the seating plan. "Oh, that's probably just a mistake," Mira said, brushing it off like it didn't mean anything. Like erasing someone on paper wasn't the first step to erasing them in real life. That night, I stood under the chandeliers at Wildbrook, watching Sierra smile wide for photographers. Mira beamed beside her, wine in hand, her makeup flawless. I stayed near the back, talking logistics with the florist, reviewing delivery times. My brother waved at me from the far end of the courtyard. He looked tired, probably from all the bending over backward I'd asked him to do. When Sierra walked past me with her entourage of bridesmaids, she didn't even nod. Just sailed by, perfume lingering in the air, laughter trailing like royalty passing commoners. But I bit my tongue. I told myself again and again, I was here for Mira. The next morning, I found myself alone in the Wildbrook kitchen, double-checking everything. The staff buzzed around me, prepping trays, unfolding linen napkins. The chef clapped my back. "You're a good man," he said. "I don't even know how much of this is running because of you." I just nodded. I'm used to it. But I wasn't. Not really. Later that day, I stood in the hallway outside the bridal suite, sipping stale coffee, waiting to check in on Mira. That's when I heard it. Her voice. "Sierra. Sharp. Deliberate. He's too trashy to attend my wedding," she sneered. The words hit harder than I expected. Not surprising, but heavy. Like confirmation that all the years of effort had bought me nothing but mockery. I stepped back, heart thudding. And in that instant, the invitation, the venue, the catering, it all felt like a carefully wrapped insult. A smile with a dagger tucked underneath. I walked away, down the hall, past the laughter, past the flowers, out into the open air. That's when the first seed of something else took root in me. Not rage, not revenge, just clarity. And with it, the first crack in the mask I'd worn for too long. I should have kept walking. Should have kept my distance, let it roll off me like I always had. But something about hearing it out loud, those words, froze me in place. My name wasn't even said, but the venom was clearly meant for me. He's too trashy to attend my wedding. Sierra spat with so much disdain you'd think I was some stranger who had just crashed the event. But I wasn't. I was the man who'd funded the catering, the one who got her the damn venue, who used every ounce of goodwill I had to pave the way for a wedding she didn't think I deserved to attend. There was a beat of silence in the room after she said it, just long enough for my lungs to tighten, my jaw to clench. Then a voice. I didn't recognize who it was, softly said, "Didn't he pay for the food?" A question. A fact. Sierra's laugh was sharp and short. That was Myra's money, anyway. That was the cut. But it was Myra's silence that twisted the knife. She didn't say anything. Not a word. I could picture her in my mind, sitting there in her pale mauve dress, champagne glass in hand, lips painted and curled just enough to hide how still she was. She didn't jump to my defense. Didn't say, actually, that was Carter. She didn't say my name. She didn't look uncomfortable or embarrassed. She just sipped. And I turned. I didn't barge in. Didn't yell. Didn't cause a scene. I just walked away. My footsteps were louder in my head than in the corridor. I passed the mirrors that lined the hallway, caught my reflection, tie slightly askew, shoes polished, face a mask of stillness. But my hands were trembling. Not from rage, not yet. From disappointment, from exhaustion, from years of swallowing small insults and shrinking myself so Mira wouldn't feel pulled between me and her family. I made it outside before the air left my lungs. The courtyard was empty. Birds chirped as if the world wasn't cracking quietly beneath me. I leaned against the brick wall and stared at the neatly manicured lawn stretching out toward the horizon. This estate, the very one my brother Mason had given them a miracle deal on because I asked him to. I laughed once, dry, bitter. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Mason. "You good? Need help with the setup?" I didn't answer. Not yet. I paced for a while, ran my hand through my hair, trying to calm the storm rolling behind my ribs. It wasn't just the words. It was the fact that Sierra had felt comfortable enough to say them, that Mira had done nothing to stop her. And maybe it was my fault, too, for thinking that giving and giving and giving would eventually buy me a seat at their table. A real one. Later that night, I got the full story. Mason called, casual as ever. "So, you're actually friends with this Sierra lady?" he asked. I could hear the hesitation in his voice, like something wasn't adding up. "She's Myra's sister," I said flatly. "That's about as far as it goes." Mason whistled low. "Damn. That explains it." "Explains what?" "They came in here last month. Real nice. Said you'd sent them. Claimed you and Sierra were cousins. That she was family and needed the favor. Used your name to get 60% off the entire venue package." I sat down slowly on the back steps, the phone pressed to my ear like it was holding me up. "They used my name?" I asked. "Yeah, and I didn't question it. You've never once asked me for anything selfish, so I figured it was legit." I closed my eyes. "It's not." There was silence on the line. Then Mason's voice changed. Lower. Sharper. "You sure you want them to get away with this?" I didn't answer right away, but he didn't need me to. Mason and I were brothers. Grew up in the same 3-bedroom house. Shared bunk beds. Shared clothes. Took punches for each other on schoolyards. He could hear the answer in my silence. In the way my breath slowed. In the fact that for once, I didn't say, "Let it go." "She called you trashy," he muttered. I swallowed hard. "Yeah." "She used your name." "Yeah." "She let you pay." I didn't respond. I didn't have to. "Okay then," Mason said. "Let's see how classy she feels when the lights go out." That night, I lay in bed next to Mira, and I didn't say a word about it. She curled into my side, acting like nothing happened. Maybe she thought I hadn't heard. Maybe she thought silence meant permission. But for the first time in a long time, I felt nothing when she touched me. No warmth. No loyalty. Just the numb cold of realization. And I knew I was done being their silent benefactor. I didn't deserve kindness in return for everything I'd done, but I didn't deserve mockery either. That line Sierra threw? Too trashy to attend my wedding? She was right about one thing. I wouldn't be attending, but not for the reason she thought. No, I had better plans. Not revenge, exactly. Just clarity, and a little spotlight on the truth. Mason's call came just after midnight, and even though I was still wide awake, staring at the ceiling fan slicing slow circles in the dark, I let it ring twice before answering. The hesitation wasn't for him, it was for me. I wasn't sure what version of myself I was going to give him. The calm brother? The humiliated one? Or the one already making calculations? Bro, Mason said as soon as I picked up. Are you actually friends with this woman? His tone was baffled, but underneath it, I could hear the tightening. Mason rarely lost his cool, but once something crossed that unspoken line we both knew from childhood, the one where principle outweighs politeness, he got very, very focused. She's my wife's sister, I said, my voice flat. We're not friends. She barely tolerates me. Apparently, I'm too trashy for her wedding. There was a pause. Then Mason chuckled, but it wasn't humor, it was disbelief. That explains a lot. Man. He trailed off, and I waited. I knew something was coming, and I wasn't sure I wanted to hear it. They dropped your name to get a 60% discount on the estate rental, he said. 60%, Carter. I thought it was odd, but they said you referred them, that Sierra was your cousin or something. Family rate. You know, the one we only use for blood. I sat up in bed. Mira stirred beside me, rolled over but didn't wake. The glow from my phone screen reflected her cheek. Soft. Peaceful. The picture of innocence. I wanted to believe she hadn't known. I really, truly did. She told you she was my cousin? I asked. Mason laughed again. Yup. Said you vouched for her. That you'd promised she'd be low maintenance and grateful. Used your name like a damn discount code. My chest went tight. She's not even kind to me, man, I said quietly. I overheard her say I was too trashy for her wedding. Not just now this morning. She said it in the bridal lounge, and Mira didn't correct her. Just sipped champagne like it wasn't even worth a flick of defense. Mason didn't say anything at first. I could hear the rustle of papers on his end, maybe a pen being set down. He was at the office, probably reviewing the signed contracts. I'm sorry, bro, he said finally. That's low. Even for them. I sighed. It's not even about the wedding. It's about the pattern. I've been over backwards for Myra's family for years. Helped Darius get his car fixed. Drove Aunt Renee to her doctor's appointments when Mira was too busy. Sat through dinners where her mom called me working class like it was a diagnosis. I always took it. Always thought, it's just for Mira. Be the bigger man. But tonight, something cracked. Mason cleared his throat. You sure you want them to get away with this? I let the question hang in the air between us. In that moment, I thought about all the times I'd swallowed my pride. The times I said nothing when they twisted the narrative. How easily Sierra had weaponized my kindness and turned it into leverage. How Mira had stood by, sipping her drink, watching her husband be gutted with words and doing nothing to stop it. And Mason. He'd only needed to hear the silence. Okay, he said. Let's talk logistics. My brother wasn't a loud man. He didn't deal in outbursts or chaos. But he believed in fairness. He believed in earning your way. And he hated liars. We start with the contract, he said. The entire rental agreement is voidable under misrepresentation. I had them sign the event declaration with a clause that allows cancellation if there's deception. It's rare, but it's in there. They violated it the second they claimed to be family. And the catering? I asked. You paid out of pocket. It's in your name. The trucks are under your account. You can cancel with 48 hours notice, no penalty. Want me to pull them? Pull them, I said. What about water and power? You set that up through the estate's utilities. Disconnect it all, I said. The flowers and the stage setup can stay. Let them pose. Let them look pretty. Just no power. No food. No lights. No lies. Mason paused again. You're sure? Yes. Because this wasn't about vengeance anymore. This was about calling time on years of disrespect. I wasn't slashing tires. I wasn't cussing anyone out. I was simply removing the parts I'd paid for, the parts that depended on me to exist. Without deception, the wedding wouldn't have happened at Wildbrook. Without me, there would be no food, no ambience, no estate glow for Instagram. They wanted to erase me from their picture, I said. So let's see what the picture looks like without me in it. Mason gave a quiet chuckle. You always had the cleanest way of settling scores. We ended the call, and I stared at the phone for a long time. Mira still hadn't woken. Her arm was flung across the bed, fingers curled slightly, like she was dreaming of something easy. For the first time, I looked at her and didn't see a partner. I saw a spectator, someone who had watched me be humiliated and thought, this isn't my problem. The following morning, I got a message from Mason. A screenshot of the cancellation confirmation for the catering trucks, another for the utilities. The estate team had already reprogrammed the lighting grid. Anything scheduled for that day would remain dark. They'd left the decor untouched, the outdoor ceremony space still pristine. It was surgical, deliberate. By the time I arrived at the estate that afternoon, I walked the grounds with Mason, hands in my pockets, calm. It wasn't chaos, it was control. We weren't sabotaging a wedding. We were simply refusing to fund a lie. And that, I realized, wasn't trashy. It was honest. And long overdue. Sierra was busy posting champagne toasts and flower-crowned selfies while Mason and I stood in the back office of Wildbrook Estate, surrounded by architectural blueprints and vendor contracts. The windows were cracked just enough to let in the early morning chill, and the smell of polished oak and fresh-cut grass filled the air. I should have felt guilty, but I didn't. Not anymore. I felt clear. Cold, maybe, but clean. Mason held up the contract like it was a piece of art, his finger tracing the clause that changed everything. Clause 9C, he said, almost admiringly. False representation leads to immediate revocation of privileges without notice. Not just the venue, anything booked under our umbrella. Power, water, staffing. It's airtight. I nodded, arms crossed. She used my name. Lied about being family. Lied about the referral. And she did it with confidence, Mason added, shaking his head. Like no one would check. Like being pretty and loud was a substitute for integrity. He set the paper down and looked at me. We sure we're doing this? I gave a small smile. We're not destroying anything. We're just stepping back. Mason understood. That was the beauty of a brother who grew up in the same heat. We didn't believe in revenge for the sake of ego, but we also didn't believe in enabling liars to throw their celebrations on the backs of people they mocked. We started with the internal services. Mason made one call to our operations team and told them to remove the generator allocation from Sierra's event. Without the estate's backup systems, the outdoor area would be completely reliant on the city grid, which they hadn't arranged. It wasn't a cancellation. It was a withdrawal. A reset to zero. Next came the water. Wildbrook ran its event plumbing off a separate tank to ensure uninterrupted pressure during high-demand days. We booked their usage through our network. No? Canceled. The pipes would deliver little more than a polite trickle. Not enough for bathrooms, let alone the kitchen. The florist had been hired independently, so we left that alone. So had the string quartet. Let them play. Let them pose. Let them smile under the arbor in a designer dress and filtered light. But let that smile fade when guests start to whisper about the darkness, the missing hors d'oeuvres, the bathrooms that won't flush. I canceled the catering next. One phone call. Pull the trucks, I told Chef Malik. They were under my name. Plans changed. He didn't ask questions. Just said, got it. Sorry to hear that. And the line went dead. By mid-afternoon, Mason had prepared a formal notice to be posted on-site in the event of public confusion. Not a press release. Just a printed statement for transparency should it be needed. It was professional, blunt, legal. This event has been modified due to contractual violations by the client, including the use of false representation for financial benefit. As a result, Wildbrook Estate has rescinded all services extended through our internal network. Any remaining elements have been left in good faith. Simple. Effective. Sierra was still posting filter-heavy countdown videos when Mason sent me a screenshot of her event page. T-3 days, she'd written in all caps, followed by heart emojis and a looping video of her laughing while her bridesmaids danced behind her. I wondered if she'd laugh the same way when the lights didn't come on, when the canapes never arrived. I didn't hope for her public collapse. I didn't want viral videos or dramatic headlines. What I wanted, needed, was for her to feel the absence. To understand, even for one breathless moment, that the world didn't revolve around her cruelty. That people she used like props might one day pull the rug out from under her and leave her to fall on her own terms. Mira hadn't said much since the night I overheard the insult. We moved around each other like strangers playing house. She hadn't asked why I was quiet, why I'd come home late, why I stared at her for long moments like I was searching for someone I used to recognize. And I hadn't brought it up either. What was the point? The truth sat between us like smoke. I knew she'd heard Sierra. I knew she chose silence. The morning before the wedding, Mason and I did one final walkthrough. The estate looked perfect. Flowers in place. Chairs aligned. The sun cutting a golden trail over the ceremony lawn. From the outside, it was still the dream. But only from the outside. No turning back after today, Mason said, glancing at me. I don't want to turn back, I replied. He clapped my shoulder. Good. Before I left, I stood in the main hall, silent, alone, and looked at the arched ceiling. The velvet drapes Mira once said reminded her of movie palaces. I remembered the first time I brought her here. She'd been speechless. Said it felt like magic. And now she'd let her sister use it as a stage to humiliate me. I exhaled slowly and walked out the side door. Let them pose for photos. Let them think everything was under control. Because sometimes, the loudest truths aren't shouted, they're revealed in the silence. In the flick of a switch that never comes. In the emptiness where a toast should have been. And when it all unfolded, when the image cracked and the truth bled through, I'd be standing just outside the frame, quietly watching the show I refused to fund. By 4 p.m., the guests had begun arriving in waves, heels tapping across stone paths, laughter ricocheting off the estate walls, the scent of expensive cologne and gardenias thick in the air. Mason and I watched from the upper balcony of the east wing, hidden behind one of the bay windows that overlooked the courtyard. It was showtime, and for once, I wasn't part of the cast. They came dressed for royalty. Gold gowns, sleek tuxedos, designer sunglasses perched on heads like crowns. Phones up. Photos snapped at every angle of Wildbrook's picturesque grounds. Hashtags bloomed online faster than the petals in the rose garden. Sierra had curated every visual detail. She wanted opulence. She wanted envy. And for a little while, she got it. Down below, white chairs were aligned perfectly beneath an arch of silk and real flowers, imported and hand-pinned the night before. Sierra floated between clusters of guests like a queen surveying her kingdom, her satin robe catching the light as she passed. I could hear her laugh from where I stood. Loud. Intentional. Soaked in self-celebration. At exactly 5 o'clock, someone rang the brass bell at the gatehouse, an old tradition at Wildbrook to signal that guests should begin to take their seats. But inside the estate, panic was already blooming. The lights never came on. Inside the grand ballroom, the ambient lighting, custom programmed to pulse with soft golden hues, remained stubbornly dark. No glow from the chandeliers, no mood lighting for the string quartet. The musicians, confused, tried to adjust their music stands in the shadows. The kitchen? Silent. The head chef's prep station sat untouched. No sizzle from the fryers. No trays of canapes. No glasses of sparkling wine being circulated on silver platters. The only sound coming from the catering wing was a flurry of whispers and nervous phone calls. By 5:15, Mira appeared outside the bridal suite looking pale. She whispered frantically to one of Sierra's bridesmaids. Her hands flailed in small, restrained circles. She was trying to hold it together, but I could read her posture like a blueprint, shoulders tight, fingers twitching. She was unraveling. At 5:20, Sierra made her entrance. Or tried to. She stepped into the courtyard expecting music, expecting flashes, expecting gasps. What she got was a lukewarm smattering of applause and puzzled expressions as the guests glanced around at the dim surroundings and still empty hands. No drinks, no appetizers, no staff. From my spot upstairs, I watched her expression falter. Her smile stiffened. Her chin lifted higher in defiance. She whispered something to a woman who sprinted inside, heels clicking like gunshots. Mira followed close behind. At 5:30, the string quartet stopped playing altogether. No one had turned on the amplification system. Their bows lowered. Their confusion was now palpable. The guests began murmuring, shifting in their seats. One woman fanned herself with the program. A man checked his watch. Then Mason stepped out, clipboard in hand. Suit crisp. Expression calm and unshakable. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Ladies and gentlemen, he said clearly, standing just beneath the arbor. I'm Mason Dean, Operations Director for Wildbrook Estate. We regret to inform you that due to fraudulent information provided during the event booking, all services rendered through Wildbrook, including power, water, and on-site support, have been rescinded. A hush fell over the courtyard. You could hear a pin drop. The phones came up instantly. Dozens of screens glinting in the soft dusk. The whispers turned into gasps. Some people stood. A few laughed, awkward, shocked laughter, like they couldn't believe what they'd just heard. Mira was frozen on the steps, lips parted, one hand clutching the railing. Sierra's mouth moved, but no sound came out at first. Then she lunged forward, grabbing Mason's arm. "What the hell are you doing?" Mason didn't flinch. The event contract was signed using false familial ties and misrepresented referrals. The estate reserves the right to cancel its services in such cases. "You can't do this. You can't embarrass me like this," she hissed, face flushed with rage. "I'll sue you." "You're welcome to," Mason replied coolly. "We have every message, every recorded call, every forged reference, including the one where you claimed to be my cousin." She recoiled like she'd been slapped. And then the reality sank in. There would be no wedding procession, no candlelit dinner, no floral-strewn reception hall, no catered meal with engraved menus. Just $100,000 worth of empty promises and 755 hungry, dressed-up witnesses with Wi-Fi. I stepped down from the balcony and out the side door. No one noticed me. Not yet. I moved through the fringe of the crowd, slipping between the murmuring clusters. Someone muttered, "Is this part of the show?" Another replied, "No, this is real." The sound of heels scraping against stone turned my head. Mira had spotted me. Her eyes locked onto mine, wide, accusatory. "You did this," she said under her breath, coming closer. "You planned this." "No," I said evenly. "Sierra did this. She built a stage on lies. I just pulled the curtain. She's your family too." "No," I said. "You are. Or you were. And you let her humiliate me." She blinked. Her lips moved, but no apology came. Only silence. By the time I walked to the edge of the courtyard, Mason had stepped aside. Sierra had disappeared somewhere inside, probably hunting for a backup plan. But there wasn't one. Because for once, the man everyone dismissed, the man they called trashy, had stepped back, quietly, and let the truth speak for itself. And this time, the silence was deafening. The thing about a blackout wedding isn't the silence, it's the sound of shifting expectation. 1 minute, everyone's laughing, checking their phones, waiting for the bride to descend into her curated fairy tale. The next, they're squinting, confused, tapping at dim screens, whispering into each other's ears. I stood off to the side near the garden hedges, watching them try to process it, one expensive shoe at a time. 755 guests, and not a single one of them had a drink in hand. Some still tried to stay upbeat at first. "Maybe they're just running late," one woman said, adjusting her necklace, trying to keep her voice light. Her friend responded with a hollow laugh. "Yeah. Maybe the kitchen lost power and the music guy quit." Totally normal. But within minutes, the mood shifted from confusion to irritation. The quartet had given up and packed their instruments. The bathroom line curled back toward the gates, and I saw at least 3 people leave it in visible frustration after realizing nothing would flush. Even the kids, brought in adorable little suits and flower girl dresses, were now dragging their feet, whining about snacks and iPads and the heat. The curated magic was cracking like sugar glass under a boot. Someone pulled up the estate's Instagram and found Mason's public statement. A screenshot started circulating. Then 2. Then 20. Due to fraudulent misrepresentation, services at this event have been revoked. The word spread like wildfire. Phones came out like torches at a village riot. I watched as people started filming themselves giving live commentary. "Yo, I'm here at the Wild Brook wedding and, y'all, there is no food. No lights. No sound. Just vibes and disappointment. I think we just witnessed a real-time wedding scam." And still, Sierra hadn't come back out. Not until the murmurs reached a fever pitch. She emerged from the estate doors like a storm in heels, flanked by Mira and one of her bridesmaids. Her veil, already pinned in place, looked like a joke now, lace and tulle trembling in the wind, as if embarrassed to be part of the charade. She held her phone in one hand and fury in the other. "Everyone, please," she shouted, her voice brittle under pressure. "There's been a logistical mix-up. We're sorting it out." A murmur of disbelief swept over the crowd. Behind her, Mira looked like she wanted to sink into the stone steps. Sierra raised her voice. "Just give us a little time. The caterers are on their way. The DJ he's just delayed." "Power out too," someone called. "What's the DJ gonna play?" His heartbeat. A ripple of laughter. Sierra's jaw twitched. A woman to my left, filming the whole thing, muttered, "Man, this is better than cable." Mason stepped forward again, calm as ever. "Ladies and gentlemen, We apologize for the inconvenience, but Wildbrook Estate has no further services scheduled today. You are, of course, free to stay and enjoy the grounds at your own discretion." The phrasing was perfect. Not a confrontation, just the slow letting of air from a balloon. Sierra turned toward him, barely containing herself. "You can't do this." "I already did," he said simply. That's when a younger guy near the back, the groom's cousin, I'd later learn, called out, "Wait, didn't she lie to get this place?" All eyes turned. Sierra froze. The cousin continued, "Yeah, my mom told me. Used her sister's husband's name or something. Said they were cousins to get a deal? Bro, that's wild." Sierra's face lost its color. The phones were up again, faces lit by screens. Some guests were recording, some were texting, some were already halfway to uploading a story with dramatic music queued up. And that's when Mason pulled the final thread. He tapped his phone once and uploaded the signed contract pages publicly, watermarked, timestamped, annotated. Screenshots of emails where Sierra claimed to be his cousin. Notes where she authorized billing with my name. The truth, in black and white. And it burned through that courtyard like a match in dry grass. People weren't just irritated now. They were angry, duped. Some had flown in from out of state. Others had bought gifts, booked hotel rooms, arranged babysitters. Sierra hadn't just lied to Mason. She'd lied to everyone. About the event. About the money. About the foundation of her big fairy tale day. I watched a few people pick up their chairs and start carrying them toward their cars. Others just left them scattered, wandering off in disbelief. One woman dumped the contents of her clutch out on a bench, fanning herself with the invitation as if trying to beat the embarrassment off her skin. Through all of it, Mira stood off to the side, her hands clasped in front of her, unmoving. When our eyes met, she didn't look away this time. She didn't glare either, just stared, as if she was finally realizing the gravity of her silence. The cost of standing still while someone you love is being erased. I didn't move toward her. I didn't need to. This wasn't a moment for reconciliation. It was a reckoning. By 6 o'clock, most of the guests were gone. The estate grounds looked like the aftermath of a carnival that never started. Streamers dangling uselessly. Tables with untouched centerpieces. The ice in the drink coolers had melted into little ponds of failure. I helped Mason quietly dismantle one of the folding stands near the garden path. As I did, a woman approached, mid-50s, elegant, wearing navy blue. She held out her hand. "You Carter Dean?" I nodded cautiously. "I just want to shake your hand," she said. Not everyone has the guts to stand up to a lie like this. I took her hand, more surprised than anything. "Thank you," I said quietly. She smiled. "I hope my daughter marries someone like you." And with that, she walked off into the twilight. By 7, the hashtags had made it to local trending lists. Hashtag wedding blackout. Hashtag truth at Wildbrook. Hashtag Sierra scam. I didn't post, didn't like, didn't comment. I didn't need to. Because while Sierra had built a wedding for a headline, I just watched it crumble for the truth. And for once, the truth had the final word. I didn't expect a call from Corey that night. Not after everything. Not after the viral wreckage, the lights-out disaster, the viral videos capturing every angle of Sierra's unraveling in high definition. But sometime past midnight, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Unknown number. I stared at it for a second, thumb hovering. I almost let it go to voicemail, figured it was another reporter or someone fishing for a quote. But something told me to pick up. "Carter?" a voice asked. Tired. Strained. Familiar. "Yeah," I said, sitting up. "Speaking. This is Corey." Silence followed. Not awkward. More like the kind where someone is weighing how much truth they can stomach before it cracks them open. I waited. "I just needed to hear it from you," he said finally. "You knew, didn't you? Before the wedding." I exhaled, rubbing my eyes. I overheard her the morning of the rehearsal. She said I was too trashy to be at her wedding. Laughed about how it was Myra's money that paid for the food. Mira didn't defend me. He didn't respond right away. I walked away. Didn't say a word. I found out later she used my name, told my brother she was my cousin to get the venue discount. Lied. Brazenly. Mason called me. We checked the contracts. The catering was under my name too. It became real clear what the play was. Use me for access, then cut me out of the picture. Another pause. Then he muttered, "Jesus, you deserve to know," I said. "And I figured if I told you before the wedding, you might ignore it. Or worse, blame me." "No," he said quickly. "No, I wouldn't have. I might have tried to justify it. Might have wanted to believe it wasn't true. But I wouldn't have blamed you. The silence that followed said everything else we both were thinking. She told me she had connections, he said. Said the estate deal came through her family. Said she had the catering guy in her pocket. Told me she'd handled it all herself. That she wanted to prove she could build a dream from scratch. She built it, I said quietly. Just didn't tell you whose tools she stole. He gave a dry laugh. And it all fell apart. Fast. She could have told the truth, I added. Could have said, I asked Carter for help, or at least been decent enough not to insult me. But no. She chose to lie, publicly, while standing on the very foundation I laid for her. That's what made the choice easy. He didn't respond right away, but when he did, his voice had shifted. It wasn't just tired, it was done. I packed my stuff, he said. Left her house. Told her I needed air. She screamed for an hour. Said I embarrassed her. Said she was the victim of a setup. That sounds like her, I muttered. I checked her messages, Carter. Found the texts. The emails. She knew what she was doing. She orchestrated it. I saw the one to your brother where she signed off as Sierra Dane. You'd think she'd at least Google our last names. I sat up straighter, surprised but not shocked. She signed my last name, I said slowly. She lied about everything. Even the ring, her family heirloom. She bought it on credit 3 weeks ago. It wasn't even real gold. He sounded more stunned than bitter. Like he was still peeling back layers of a truth he didn't want to see, but now couldn't ignore. What are you going to do? I asked. There was a beat of silence, then the soft chime of his car's blinker in the background. I'm staying at my sister's place tonight. I canceled the honeymoon. Called off the credit transfers for the event balance. Put a hold on the shared account. Smart, I said. Then he surprised me. I want to thank you. I blinked. For what? For not going nuclear. For not screaming it from the rooftops or turning it into a show. You didn't destroy her. You just let the truth do what it does. I wasn't trying to ruin her, I said honestly. I just stopped holding up the ceiling. And it caved in on its own. He was quiet for a long time after that. I almost thought he'd hung up. Then he said, I should have seen it. There were signs. But when someone is that good at faking warmth, you start second-guessing your instincts. You think maybe you're the cold one. I let that sink in because I knew the feeling. I'd lived with it for years. That subtle doubt that eats away at your sense of worth because someone close to you is better at appearances than accountability. When did you know you were done? He asked. The moment I saw Mira sip that champagne and stay quiet, I said. It wasn't just Sierra. It was the silence around her. Yeah, he muttered. That silence. It's loud. Another pause. Then, quietly, thanks again. For everything. Take care of yourself, Corey. The line went dead. I stared at the phone screen for a long time before setting it down. The next morning, I woke to a dozen messages from Mason. The wedding had gone viral overnight. Memes. Commentary. Think pieces. People analyzing body language, guest reactions, even the font on the invitation. Sierra's Instagram was wiped clean by noon. No posts. No reels. No engagement photos. Just a blank profile and a changed status. Single. But the part that made me pause? One of Mason's screenshots. A Facebook Marketplace listing. Slightly used engagement ring. Make an offer. No lowballs. Because the house of mirrors had finally shattered, and the man they once called trashy had done it without ever raising his voice. 3 days. That's how long it took before Mira said a single word to me. Not a text. Not a phone call. Not even a glance as we moved around the house like strangers orbiting the same ruined planet. She spent most of the time in the guest room, which I didn't mind. Every door she shut behind her felt like a small confession, proof that even she didn't know how to face me. On the morning of the 3rd day, I was pouring coffee when I heard her footsteps in the hallway. Slow. Measured. Like she wasn't sure what version of me she'd find. The silence stretched until she stopped just past the island counter, arms folded tightly across her chest, her wedding band still on like it had something left to prove. You humiliated my family, she said finally. Her voice wasn't angry, not yet. It was disappointed, but not in herself. I didn't answer right away. I placed the coffee pot back on the burner, took a slow sip, and looked at her over the rim of my mug. No, Mira, I said calmly. Your sister humiliated me. I just removed the stage she used to do it. She winced. A small, involuntary movement that told me the words landed exactly where they were supposed to. But she didn't retreat. She was still trying to find some ground to defend, even if it crumbled beneath her. She was under pressure, Mira offered. She gets mean when she's stressed. You didn't have to take it so personally. I set the mug down and leaned against the counter. Mean when she's stressed? That's the excuse. She called me trash, used my name to get a discount, then erased me from her wedding like I was a stain. And you sat there, sipped champagne, laughed like it was any other day. I didn't laugh, she snapped, eyes flaring. I was just caught off guard. I didn't know what to say. You didn't know what to say? I echoed, almost incredulous. How about, don't talk about my husband like that. Or maybe just my name. Once. Anything. She looked down. I didn't know she used your name. Not until after. I believe you, I said. And I did. But even if you didn't know that part, Mira, you knew how she talked to me. For years. Every dinner. Every holiday. Every time she offered to set you up with someone more refined in front of me, and you pretended not to hear it. She's my sister, Mira whispered, as if that explained everything. And I was your husband, I replied. The room went quiet. Not heavy or loud. Just hollow. She walked over to the window, her arms now wrapped around her waist. I didn't think you'd go through with it, she said. I thought you'd threaten something, but not actually do it. Why not? I asked. Because I've never fought back before? She didn't answer. That's the problem, isn't it? I said. You all got used to me being the one who swallows it. Every insult. Every slight. I let it slide for you, Mira. I kept showing up to the same dinner table where your mother called me a project, where your sister said my job was manual labor with delusions of grandeur. I kept playing polite because I thought I was protecting you. And instead, she said bitterly, you blew up the wedding. No, I said firmly. I pulled back everything I contributed. That wedding fell apart on its own. She lied. She schemed. She humiliated me. And if she wanted a picture-perfect day, she shouldn't have built it on a foundation of contempt. Mira was quiet again. I saw her shoulders tremble, just once, before she finally turned to face me. Her eyes were glossy, but no tears fell. You don't understand what it's like with her. Sierra always needed to be the star. I spent my whole life trying to stay in her shadow so I wouldn't be swallowed by it. And in doing that, I said, you let her put me in the dirt. Her breath hitched. I didn't ask you to choose between us, I continued. But I needed you to see me, to speak up. Once. Just once. Her lip quivered. So what now? You want a divorce? I looked at her for a long time. That question had been looming like smoke over our house for days. I knew she expected me to say yes. Maybe even hoped I would, so she wouldn't have to make the hard call herself. No, I said. I want accountability. I want you to stop treating silence like it's neutrality. It's not. It's consent. And I can't keep loving someone who lets me be disrespected to keep the peace. She swallowed hard, then nodded slowly. You're right. I wasn't expecting that. For the first time, she dropped the defenses. Her voice shook. I should have said something. I should have told her to stop. But I was afraid. Not just of Sierra, of what it would do to us. To this family. To the image. Your silence broke more than any words ever could, I said. She nodded again, this time slower. What do you want me to do? I paused. You can start by apologizing. Not just to me, but to yourself. For letting someone else's spotlight dim your spine. Tears finally fell. Silent. Steady. I'm sorry, she said. I nodded. Now we see what's left. She walked away without another word, heading back to the guest room. And for the first time, I didn't stop her. Because this wasn't punishment. This was clarity. And whether we rebuilt or not, at least now, we were no longer pretending. I didn't say a word online. Didn't defend myself. Didn't issue a press release or give interviews, though the requests came in fast and loud. My inbox filled with blog links, podcast invites, local radio hosts hoping for an exclusive. The man behind the wedding blackout, they called me. There was something tempting about it, the chance to speak my truth out loud and let the world clap back at Sierra on my behalf. But I didn't need the noise. I already had the peace. Instead, I went back to work. Wildbrook Estate wasn't just my brother's venue. It was where we built our reputation. Long before it became the luxury spot influencers flocked to, it was an old family property we restored with our hands. I remember staining the decks myself, cutting timber behind the West Pavilion until my palms blistered. That place had bones. And history. And now, after the wedding debacle, it had something else, attention. It started the morning after Mason posted the official breakdown of what happened, carefully worded, factual, and non-sensational. Just the truth. Timeline. Names omitted. Actions detailed. Integrity laid bare. By noon, the phone wouldn't stop ringing. Is this the venue that shut down that fake wedding? I saw your brother's post. Respect. We want to book with someone who actually has principles. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same people who might have sneered at my blue-collar edge weeks ago were now calling me a class act. My phone buzzed with inquiries, client requests, people wanting to tour the property. Mason raised an eyebrow on the third day of back-to-back appointments. Maybe being trashy isn't so bad after all, he said with a grin as he flipped through new bookings on his tablet. I laughed. A full one, the kind that settled deep in the chest. Depends on who's defining the word. We'd always been called that, in one form or another. Not directly, of course. The jabs came dressed in civility. Rough around the edges. Unrefined. Better at fixing than planning. My education was hands-on, earned through sweat, not tuition. My voice was deeper, my shirts more flannel than fitted. I was never the shiny thing in the room, but I lasted longer than most of them. And now, that quiet durability was finally being seen for what it was, strength. I didn't gloat. Didn't rub it in. When Mira passed me in the hallway or sat quietly on the porch steps, I offered no smug smiles, no told-you-so glares. I wasn't trying to win against her. I was trying to win myself back. We spoke, occasionally. Quiet conversations over coffee or while locking up for the night. She seemed smaller now, not physically, but spiritually. Like someone shedding years of pretending. I could tell she was still wrestling with the fallout. Her mother had called, furious. Her sister had sent a chain of long, unhinged texts. And Mira, for once, hadn't defended them. She'd simply blocked the numbers and gone to bed. But me? I kept moving. One afternoon, while helping the grounds team pack up the melted remains of the abandoned wedding, a cake half collapsed, flowers wilted under sun, we found a decorative sign with Sierra's calligraphed quote in gold. Grace is the crown you never take off. Mason picked it up and stared at it. You want this for your office? I raised an eyebrow. I think I've got enough irony in my life. We both laughed, but then he grew quiet. You know, he said, the old man would have been proud. Which one? He shrugged. Any of them. The truth was, we came from a line of men who didn't flinch. They didn't always get it right, but they showed up. For their families. For themselves. For their values. And somewhere along the way, I'd started thinking that swallowing pride was the same as protecting peace. But it wasn't. Not always. Some peace comes only after a storm. A few days later, I was in the estate's main hall reviewing a contractor's proposal for a new wing expansion when a young woman approached me. Are you Carter Dean? She asked, holding out a notepad like I was some local celebrity. I am, I said carefully. She smiled, wide and genuine. I just wanted to say thank you. I watched what happened online, and I told my dad, finally. Someone stood up. Not with shouting, not with drama. Just with standards. I didn't know what to say, so I nodded. I appreciate that. You inspired me, she said. To walk away from a guy who kept making me feel small. And then she walked off, just like that. That moment stayed with me. Because somewhere between the shame Sierra tried to throw on my shoulders and the silence Mira wrapped herself in, I had finally chosen myself. Not out of spite, not out of ego, but out of necessity. Later that week, Mason and I toasted with cold beers in the staff lounge. To lies exposed, he said. To peace earned, I added. He smirked. To being proudly trashy. I clinked bottles with him, smiling as I said, only if it gets results. And the funny thing was, it had. Not just with the estate or the clients or the quiet respect now coming from the corners that once mocked me. But inside, for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything. I was no one's scapegoat. No one's stepping stone. No one's silent sponsor. I was just me. And it turned out, that was more than enough. It arrived on a Thursday afternoon, tucked in a plain white envelope with my name handwritten in neat, deliberate ink, no cursive, no embellishment, no pretense. I almost didn't open it right away. I'd just come in from the estate, boots dusty, shirt damp from the spring sun. My hands still smelled faintly of fresh paint and pine. For a brief moment, I stood there at the counter, staring at the envelope like it might bite. Something about it felt personal in a way I hadn't experienced in a long time. When I finally slid my finger beneath the flap and unfolded the card, I read the first line twice. Carter. Getting married next spring. Smaller crowd. Real love. Real people. I want you there. Corey. I smiled. Not a smirk. Not surprise. Just a small, honest curl of the lips that felt like it came from somewhere deeper than my face. 2 months had passed since the blackout wedding, since Sierra's empire of glitter and deception collapsed under its own weight. Since Mira walked out of the guest room with her suitcase and said, with more softness than anger, "I think we need to figure out who we are when we're not trying to survive each other." I'd nodded. She left quietly. No fights. No legal threats. No parade of apologies either. Just a pause. Maybe permanent. Maybe not. I didn't cling to the outcome. In the quiet that followed, I rebuilt. Mason and I expanded the estate's bookings, doubled our staff, added a second outdoor pavilion for spring weddings. Word had spread. Integrity was trending. Couples came not for glamour, but because they trusted the soil beneath their ceremony would hold. And now here was Corey, man enough to walk away from a woman who built her entire persona on illusion, inviting me to stand on new ground. His words were short, but they rang with sincerity. Real love. Real people. That alone was enough to make me say yes. When the day came, I kept it simple. I wore a soft navy blazer, the same black jeans I'd worn the day I signed the first Wildbrook contract, and the leather boots Sierra once said belonged on a landscaping crew, not at a wedding. I wore them anyway. The venue wasn't Wildbrook. It was a rustic vineyard just outside of town, less polished than ours, but rich with character, rows of vines curling over aged fences, hanging lanterns that swayed in the breeze, a wide clearing with wooden benches instead of chairs. It didn't feel curated. It felt chosen. Corey greeted me like we'd known each other for years. He clasped my hand, pulled me into a quick embrace, then looked me in the eye. "I'm glad you came," he said. I nodded. Wouldn't miss it. His bride, Ava, was nothing like Sierra. She had no entourage, no theatrics. Just a bright smile, hair pulled back in a loose braid, eyes that didn't flinch under scrutiny. She held Corey's hand like it was a promise she intended to keep, not a prop to flaunt. During the ceremony, they read vows they'd written themselves, no borrowed lines, no Pinterest quotes. Just raw, vulnerable truths. Corey's voice cracked once, and Ava didn't rush him. She just squeezed his hand and smiled until he found his breath again. I sat in the back, soaking it all in. Not just the vows or the breeze or the easy way the crowd laughed without checking to see who was watching, but the simplicity of it. The way love looked when it wasn't trying to prove anything. The reception was set beneath a tent draped in warm lights. Long wooden tables instead of round ones. Real linen napkins, mismatched plates, homemade food. Every detail was thoughtful, not flashy. There were no status symbols here. Just people who mattered. About halfway through dinner, Corey raised his glass. The room quieted. His voice was calm, sure. "I want to thank everyone here, not just for coming, but for standing by us through a messy chapter. Some of you know what happened. Some of you only heard bits and pieces. But what matters is that we're here, now. Whole. Honest. And we owe that to a few people in this room." He looked at me. "To Carter Dean," he said. A man who reminded me that silence isn't the same as peace, and that truth, when spoken plainly, has the power to set people free. The crowd applauded. I didn't stand. I just lifted my glass and nodded. Later, as people danced and music swirled beneath the stars, Mason sidled up beside me, a fresh drink in hand. He handed it over without a word, then gestured toward the crowd. "This feels right," he said. "It does," I agreed. He grinned. "Still wearing those boots, huh?" "They're broken in," I replied. "Like me." He laughed, and we clinked glasses. Near the end of the night, Corey approached again. His tie was loose, jacket draped over one shoulder. "I meant what I said," he told me. "I know." He glanced toward Ava, who was spinning barefoot with a child on her hip. "I got lucky." "No," I corrected. "You got honest. Then you made a better choice." He nodded slowly, like that truth had just settled in for the first time. "Thanks for showing me how." "I didn't do anything special," I said. "Exactly," he replied. And with that, he disappeared into the crowd again. As I walked toward my truck beneath the soft hum of crickets and clinking glasses, I realized something. I didn't feel like an outsider anymore. Not here. Not in my skin. Not in the boots they once mocked. Because I had shown up. Stood up. Spoken up. And now? Now I was exactly where I belonged.